I arrived in Hanoi quite suddenly. I had been accompanying my daughter. She was trekking in the Far East, and she went one way to India, and then I went the other way to Vietnam. I thought about Vietnam a lot because I had left the United States in the late 70s because of the Vietnam War. And I arrived in Vietnam not really knowing what to expect. And I fell in love with everything I saw, with the people, with the art, with the food, with the geography, with the nature. It was just a fabulous experience. And I was very fortunate to be taken under the wing of a gentleman and his wife, who turned out was the foremost art critic in Vietnam. And through them, I met all the artists, and I had the work hanging on the walls in the little house, which I rented in the Vietnamese old section of the city. As I said before, I was in Hanoi, and I had all this lovely artwork hanging on the walls of my tiny apartment. And because my son studied in the UN International School, the women got together every so often to exchange cuisines and chat and gossip. And it was my turn. And after being in all the embassies and consulates, I warned the ladies that they wouldn't even be placed in my home to sit down, but they would have the best Vietnamese food they ever had, and see a bit of artwork. And they came, and they were just blown away by the artwork. And the next day I got calls from the French ambassador secretary and the Norwegian ambassador secretary and a few others as well, asking me to select artwork for the embassies, which I was delighted to do. And I did this for a while just as a way of helping out the artists, until the artist said, "Raquelle, you're really good at this. Would you represent us internationally?" And I said, "All right, I will try." Before it was Vietnam, it was Indochina. And in 1924, colleagues of Matisse came over to what was then Hanoi, and still, of course, is Hanoi, and founded the Fine Arts Academy of Indochina in Hanoi, the École des Beaux-Arts de l'Indochine in Hanoi. And the fusion of the French artists and the Vietnamese artists just led to the most amazing artwork, where they were using silk and lacquer, as well as the European traditions of oil and watercolor. And when you look at Vietnamese art today, and I always say to everyone, everywhere you go in Asia, in every country, you'll find beautiful art, but only in Vietnam do you see this amazing fusion of Eastern and Western art, which makes it so palatable to the Western eye. The international interest in Asian art, I would say, began in the late 1980s, early 1990s. It began, of course, with China, went to India, and happily arrived at Vietnamese art. And in the early 1990s, there was the first article in Time magazine, which was at the time the most popular magazine anywhere, about 4 Vietnamese artists, whom of course I know and appreciate very well. And since then, it's become a phenomenon. I'm happy that I am one of the 5 people that have been most involved in bringing Vietnamese art to the attention of the international scene. I've been showing for 20 years in the United States, on the continent, in England, in galleries, in museums, in art fairs. And I'm happy to say that the reception everywhere has just been amazing. I remember the first time I showed in London, it was 2002. I sent over from Hanoi 15 frame paintings, and not knowing what to expect. And within 2 days, all the works have found new homes. So it started there, and it's just gone on since. I'd like to share a little bit with you about Phan Cam Thuong. Phan Cam Thuong, in addition to being a leading professor of art history in Hanoi, is also one of the most interesting and iconoclastic artists. He spends 6 months of every year in the pagoda, in Buddha Pagoda, where he prepares enormous works on paper for the pagodas, and the other 6 months of the year he's in Hanoi teaching and painting. He works on silk and on very heavy paper, and his work talks about ancient figures, ancient traditions, and it's almost magical. The work that you'll be seeing here on silk is called Unmasked, and if you look carefully, you can see the figures are actually taking off their masks as part of a ritual ceremony. He's very interesting, he's very deep, and his work can be appreciated in so many aspects. Because of course we're speaking about Vietnamese contemporary fine art, I prefer working with the native materials of Vietnam, which is lacquer on wood, watercolor on handmade paper, and watercolor on silk. All these mediums lend a very special ambience to the paintings and give it a very strong sense of belonging to a particular culture. Nguyen Toan, whose work I'm showing, is considered the city mandarin or the country mandarin, because what he does is he goes into the villages where the minority tribes in Vietnam live for several months every year with a huge pile of sketchbooks. And he sketches the figures, the women, the men at work in their lives working. He goes back to his studio in Hanoi and actually starts painting. And in the work featured by him in this show, you will see some of these village figures transposed by his sort of Picasso-esque, shall we say, drawing skills into lovely paintings. Quang, I discovered him when he was just 20 years old, finishing art school, having his first art exhibition. I fell in love with his work, the minimalist of his paintings, the serenity of his paintings, the spaces he leaves in his paintings for the viewer to enter and feel at home in the paintings. All these works, one of which, by the way, I have in my bedroom to this very day, because it's so meaningful to me. All of these works enable us to become part of the Vietnamese contemporary fine art experience, which I think all of you will very much enjoy. I am so looking forward to my next exhibitions, although I've just finished last month's 2 exhibitions in Brussels and in London. My next exhibitions will be in the autumn in London. I will be showing, as every year, at Asian Art London in a lovely gallery in St. James's, where you will be able to see some of work from Indochine period. I discovered recently in Paris an enormously important find, a portfolio of 20 paintings by the French artist Marie-Antoinette Bouillard-Devey, who was in Indochine for many years in the 1920s and painted the most exquisite paintings of some of the Vietnamese and the Indochine artists. I will also be showing in the Affordable Art Battersea in October as well, and I hope to see all of you at one or both of these lovely events.